All right, welcome back, everyone, to Get the Net Fishing Podcast. We got an Elite Series rookie, Kyle Patrick, coming up tonight. He's a buddy from the Opens. Actually, took the last qualifying spot. We're going to talk to him about that. In addition to his fishing career, he is the pro staff manager for Powerhouse Batteries. We're going to dive into the 16-bolt system that everyone's been talking about, and talk about some pro staff stuff, how to get on a team, how it works, what they're looking for. Whole bunch of that, some fish and talk. We'll dive into it. See you on the other side. Welcome to Get the Net, a fishing podcast that takes a deep dive into competitive events, fishing news, tips, tactics, and most importantly, interviews with some of the most interesting and in-tuned anglers from Canada to the central U.S. We're leaving no stone unturned to bring you the most raw and authentic dock talk. My name is Jamie Bruce. While my resume says bass, my frying pan says walleye, and I'm no stranger to the multi-species realm. Whether you're puttering on tackle, driving the bus, cutting the grass, or killing time in a 9 to 5, we'll try to give you something in every episode to take with you on the water, or at the very least, bring you a few laughs. All right, welcome back to Get the Net. Jamie Bruce here, coming at you with episode more tailored to the bass fishing side, the tournament bass side, but we're also going to really dive into pro staff stuff, batteries, what you need, whether that be ice fishing or or open water. So there's going to be something for everyone. Kyle's a good dude. He's funny. He's got lots of stuff on the go. So we're going to get him on in a minute here. Kind of hung up the ice fishing rods around here the last few days. Got all my rods rigged, got my boat put back together, pulling the scope off my ice fishing kit, slapping it back on the boat, cleaning everything up. I'm riled up and ready to get down there. So yeah, kind of pushing the ice fishing gear to the side. I'll be back at that as soon as I get back. But yeah, otherwise just trying to get my life in order for the fishing front. I'm going to have a pretty busy spring. So I'm not going to have a whole bunch of time like I usually do to prep. But yeah, trying to get my ass into shape a little bit, shut her down on the booze, eating clean, figure if I'm going to compete with these, 20 to 25-year-olds that are currently dominating the tournament world, gonna have to step her up a little bit. There's a reason that young people in sports often take over and take the reins, and it seems to be happening younger and younger every year. So, I kind of figure a way to mitigate that is to make sure I'm as healthy as I possibly can be, and, in turn extending my time in the boat. Those Northern Opens, a lot of people don't think about it, but when you say dark to dark in a March tournament in Florida, it's not a big deal. But when you have 4.5 days to break down a lake like St. Clair that you've never been to before, and you're going dark to dark in July, that means like 5 in the morning till, 9:30 or 10 at night. And you're not going to be able to do that if you're an out of shape blob. So after that St. Lawrence River tournament last year down in Waddington, I got third there, and I couldn't help but think after, like, what if I could have idled or fished for another hour, 2 hours total in practice, and been in a place where I could have made that happen and outworks them a little bit more. Corey and Jody that, were first and second. It's like maybe I could have found one more rock or, one more channel spot, or could have been the difference between, where I ended up and going to the Bassmaster Classic. So that's kind of the driving force behind it. But it's one of those things we're always thinking about how to get a competitive edge. And that's where we're at there, getting all my camping gear in order. I've got this trip I'm going on is kind of wild for me because I'm going to Dallas, picking up my 4-wheel camper's topper, having them install it. And then that night I start living in it for the next like 8 days. So, no time at home to rig it, nothing to like feel it out. I've watched about every video known to man on it. So I've got all my gear set up because I want it to be as comfortable as I can so I can focus on fishing. And going to be interesting to see how that one goes for sure. Lost all my waypoints for Eufaula. I thought I had a real dialed and organized system, and I guess the one lake I needed is the one I don't have. So I've got plenty for Eufaula, Oklahoma, but not Eufaula, Alabama for this Bass Nation regional qualifier. But that's all right. I got a 104th out of 225 last time there anyway, so it's not like anything I had is real great. I'm gonna have to find some new stuff. So got the Bass Opens kicking off right away in Okeechobee, Florida. Talked to Brad and the boys. They're all riled up. Everyone's on their way or down there already, and we're gonna get this open season kicked off. Before we yank Kyle on here, I just got to remind you about Nordic Point Lodge. If you got a buddy with a bachelor party coming up, and you're the one kind of stuck holding the torch to plan it, really good option up there. You don't have to pull the whole crew fishing the whole time. There's a good surf and turf they push there. The little fish, little golf, little relaxing. It doesn't always have to be about hardcore fishing. I know, I fish so much when I go tear it up with my buddies for a bachelor party. I like, heading out on the links. It's kind of the one time a year I get to go. And I mean, as you get older, you get to go to less bachelor parties, but check it out in the link below. Very accommodating, and probably just saved you a lot of planning by mentioning that if you're a best man or a buddy in that position. So, and I know this isn't a straight ice fishing dedicated podcast. I got to remind you about the 13 Wicked Pro. There's only a few left now. We may as well clear them out of there. League of the Woods Sports headquarters have just a handful left. They're probably the only ones left in the province. They've been selling like hotcakes. Jay Samsel and I had a lot of input into this rod. We really made it, to suit our needs as walleye anglers and anglers in the North Country. So everything, every spec is detailed, other than the colored tip. That was their little touch, but everything else, tailored to suit our styles up here. And or for anyone that feels the same way we do, where we really like those parabolic rods and that super crisp action, and the whole thing just loads up. And I say it all the time, you're paying for the whole damn rod, the whole thing better bend. So check those out at sportsheadquarters.ca and in store. And while you're there, check out some Sims fishing products. I'm really lucky to have a bunch of Sims right now, because as I'm packing for this trip, I don't know if it's going to be below freezing or 75 Fahrenheit. I got to start getting into Fahrenheits now that I'm heading south, but it can go either way. Last time I was in Eufaula, it was cooking every day, and I was wearing my cooling Guide Solar Flex sun shirts. This time I could be all base layered up, and there's a lot of good glove options and things like that you really appreciate when you fish a range of temperatures from -30 to +30, which we end up doing. Anyway, that's it from my end. We've had them waiting long enough. Let's get on Kyle Patrick. This outdoor content has been brought to you in part by Nordic Point Lodge. Located in northwestern Ontario, Nordic Point Lodge offers some of the finest fishing Canada has to offer. Whether you're looking for a family-friendly getaway or a corporate retreat, Nordic Point Lodge has you covered. They offer a luxury outdoor experience with 5-star service. Check out the description below for more information. BT Fishing is a northern-born, small-town tackle brand. Focusing on innovating rather than imitating, BT has left a mark on all levels of competitive fishing, from walleye tournaments all the way to the Bassmaster Classic. The full BT lineup is comprised of innovative tackle, carefully crafted using the highest quality components. Check out the Smeltinator jig, Elite Marabou jig, Crusher jig, Clack Shot, Clean jig, Smeltinator underspin at more at sportsheadquarters.ca. We ship across Canada and the US. Use promo code GETTHENET for 10% off all products in the BT lineup.
How you living, man?
I'm good, sitting in the corner of a garage in middle of nowhere, Canada, talking about bass fishing. Where the hell are you at?
Friggin' dead center of Boston, Massachusetts, the city, in my girlfriend's apartment / my apartment, kind of.
Your apartment's in the box of your truck, bud.
Yeah, I know, but that's not what the bank account says, unfortunately.
Yeah, fair enough. So what the
Yeah.
hell? You're bopping all over the place. You were down in Texas for a couple days, I take it.
Yeah, Texas for a couple days, although the weather wasn't very friendly to me. Actually, it was miserable. Being in Texas in like the middle of nowhere is cool when it's like 70 at night and like, 80 during the day, light breeze. But when it's 14 degrees at night and like 28 in the middle of the day, that's a pretty miserable place. I gotta tell you right now, like it's miserable. But yeah, I got a few days in Texas, and then I kept my boat at my buddy's place in Louisiana. Then went to California for 4 days for a trade show, and then flew back in, and then drove back to Florida because I was at a conference there before I drove to Texas. So I drove back to Florida, hopped on a plane, so my girlfriend didn't divorce me, and then I'm gonna fly back in Saturday morning for the Open.
Yeah, this is just business as usual for you. For those that are listening and don't know, Kyle is the Iron Man of tournament fishing and the fishing industry at the same time. Lots of people say they like to focus on fishing and, throw all their effort into that. And others are more about content and marketing and pro staff obligations and sport shows and everything like that. And somehow you do both hard.
Dude, I don't know, like it's a cool thing now, but man, is it draining. Like maybe I can sustain it. I don't know. I got the personality to sustain it, I think, but it takes a toll. Really takes a toll. And I don't know yet because I haven't started fishing yet. So I think that ties it. Believe it or not, like it's more work, but like when you're out on the water, you have a sense of peace. Like kind of takes you away, even though there's pressure on whether you're fishing the opens or the elites. Like there's going to be pressure, but it's like a different type of pressure. But when you're between 200-300-pound ladies on an airplane going to and with 3-hour layover, like going to work a trade show, it doesn't feel exactly, relaxing.
Oh, man. Yeah, you wonder how long you can kind of burn that candle at both ends. I was just saying, like, you were the second oldest in the EQs that qualified for the elites at 26.
Yeah, that to me blows my mind. You're competing, and I always say this, and I am a proponent for, like, if you have a passion for the sport, right? It doesn't matter whether you come from money, it doesn't matter what you do. You make the elite series, you're a good fisherman and you have the passion for it, for fishing, right? But it's hard to compete against guys that have no responsibilities outside of driving their boat and truck to the Derby. Like, rent, insurance, mortgage, like all those things that, guys that are, 20, we'll call it 25, 26 plus have to think about. Or even, there's younger guys that think about that. But I feel like a lot of the guys that qualified don't have as much on their plate. And I'm making assumptions here. I'm not trying to, like, again, not taking anything away, but as you get older, as you know, and as, other people I'm sure know in the industry, like you can't focus as much on the fishing. So you have to figure out a good balance to try to do it. And I don't think, although I'm doing all this, I don't think I've found a balance yet, because I find myself like just over, like my mental side when it's just overworked, but I'm doing it. So I got to figure out though, like how to sustain it for like the longevity piece.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, a lot of guys like it's easy to kick back and be like, oh, this kid's got no responsibilities and everything, and that's why they're beating your ass. And they're not wrong, but that doesn't change the fact that if you want to compete with them and ever have a chance at beating them, then you have to find another gear. Like that's,
Exactly.
you can have every excuse in the world. This person, buys waypoints, has their dad's credit card, goes hard. You can have every excuse in the world for them. At the end of the day, all you're looking at is the score sheet. And if they're above you more often than not, you can either keep bitching and fade off into the sunset or kick her up a peg.
Yep. That dude, I could not have said it better myself. That is exactly how it goes. Like it's just life, right? Like the kid that's born in, I don't know, the middle of nowhere in, some rural area versus a kid that came from wealth, like their lives are going to be different, but it's America. You can make
America, baby.
Or Canada, I guess. the party, you got the apartment above the party.
Oh yeah, Hackney.
Yeah.
What a beauty, eh?
Yeah, he's the man. I love Greg Hackney. But yeah, like you can make it happen. And that's why I hate when people say, and again, we're kind of past this. Maybe we're not, because I haven't really been keeping up with like the clickbaiters on the lube tube. But
yeah,
that's why I hate when people say like, oh, you can't do it unless you have money. You can't do it. And it's just, that's not true. You just, like you said, have to find a second gear and figure out the way that you can do it, because everyone's different. But
yeah, we just had Dakota Bear on the Into the Great Wide Open show, and he just grinded her up from nothing.
Yeah, exactly. And I watched it, and he seems like, honestly, I haven't really done research on the Opens, but I'm going to go ahead and say I think he's probably going to qualify for the elites. I don't want to be premature with it, but he's a top pick if I had a team, for sure.
Yeah. Mercer texted me after the podcast, and I was just, I don't know if I said it or not, but I think I said like I'd put $1,000 on him to make it.
Yeah.
Which is like, your odds are terrible. It's 9 and 154.
If it was $1,000 to win $1,000, would you put it on it?
On like him?
Like just 50-50.
That's what I meant.
Oh, that's what you meant. Okay.
Yeah, which is a terrible risk, but
that is a terrible bet.
Being just, it'd be different if he came from the BPT, because those guys are going to be, Meyer and Tharp and all those guys are going to be ones to watch. But I don't think they've really fished too many 225 or 250 boat tournaments lately. So I just figure that edge, and then just up and comer. Crazy how many people didn't know who he was. That's kind of a testament to Bassmaster.
Yeah, that I think now, like, I bet it's funny. Like, I knew who he was because I pay really close attention, but
yeah,
like Bassmaster is going to make him way more popular, even at the EQs, especially with the FS1 and everything. Like, I mean, they all have their flaws, man, but Bassmaster's got it going on. I mean, that's just plain and simple.
I think you could stay in the EQs and have your name built, based on performance. But if you stayed in the EQs and didn't make it for 4 years or whatever, you would still have a better chance at building your brand. Yeah. Because like people watch that. Like I was looking at it, I was like, okay, there's no outside of Bassmaster, there's no real like coverage of the Opens. We do the Into the Great Wide Opens on Stray Casts, and Pangrac has, like, he had Milliken on it after everyone's, and that was kind of it for coverage that I saw. And I'm like, people want this stuff. They want to, it's like watching college football. Is kind of how it strikes me. I like seeing the up and comers, so it's going to be freaking fun to watch, especially with all the big names, even from the sidelines. And you're fishing all the Southern Opens for probably some good reasons that sounded good at the time when you signed up, but you're batshit crazy, man.
Dude, yeah. I mean, looking back, maybe I could have. Dude, like coming off the season I had with the late season win, I was just like, yeah, let's go. Like, I'm going to just dive head first into this. And then, I was pumped, and I thought about it, and I'm like, okay, it doesn't conflict as far as like taking time away from pre-practice or, making me tired for an elite event, right? Because Okeechobee's like 2 weeks before the first elite.
Yeah.
And then Santee Cooper's after the back-to-back Toledo Fork. So I go from Toledo to Fork back-to-back, and then I drive straight to South Carolina. And if I make top 10 at Fork, I would miss Saturday, Sunday in practice. So I was like, of Santee Cooper Open.
Yeah.
So
good problem to have, though.
Right. Good problem to have. I'm not worried about it. But then, you look at it and you're like, geez, man, like, and then, okay. And then Hartwell is at the end and whatever. My original thinking was I've never been to Santee Cooper. I've never been to Okeechobee. Those are necessary events. Like if you put in an Excel sheet, I have an Excel sheet. My buddy actually made it a year or two ago, of like the top, 25 lakes that Bassmaster visits. Yeah. And like those two are in the top 5 or 10 or whatever it is. Like they're going to go there always, unless something drastic happens. So I was just like, you know what, I better get some tournament experience under my belt, warm up and learn those lakes. But it's definitely going to take a toll this year mentally, just, I don't know. We'll see. Maybe I'll go out and win Okeechobee and qualify for the Classic before I even fish it.
Yeah, you can just sleep in all year.
Oh gosh, that would be.
So you got all you're trying to tie you probably got her licked up already. You're the pro staff manager. Is that your title for Powerhouse?
I don't even know. Like my title. This is what my email says. It's kind of funny. It's weird. I think it's pro staff manager, and what else is it? Sales manager. But I mean, that's just because I deal with some dealers, right? Like, I'll take the load off because what's great is like the Powerhouse is, we're fishermen, all of us, the owners, the 2 owners, me, everyone we deal with is fishermen. So they understand, right? Like if I'm in an elite event or practicing for an elite event or practicing for an open or in an open, everyone knows, right? Like Kyle's not going to be as responsive right now. So that's what's super cool about, working for a company and partnering with a company in the industry, is they understand. So like when I'm off the water, like say I have a 2-week break where I'm not pre-practicing or anything, I deal with dealerships, I take phone calls, I'll, network as much as I can for the company, whether it's with Wired to Fish or there's all types of like nitty gritty, like things that I just deal with, right? Like I don't really have a title per se is what I'm getting to, but pro staff manager is one of them. Like I do like that job because I think I'm pretty decent at, okay, who's a good guy, right? First off, who has a good personality, who's like a good dude to be around. You can go to go out with and hang out, not right. And then also like, how are these people adding value? And what are they, just scouting talent. Like, honestly, I kind of like to think that I know who can do a good job. Right. And that's originally, before I was even pro staff manager, I told them when I first signed up, I think it was like a year and a half ago, maybe, I was like, you guys got to get Jamie Bruce. And I didn't even know you. Right. You remember this?
I got an email from, I don't know, it was their Instagram. So I don't know if it was you.
Yeah. No, that was RJ. Cause I told him, I was like, dude, reach out to Jamie. He's a Canadian dude. I've heard about you, but like we never even met face to face. And like, it turned out great. Right. So I think I did that a few times. I signed up some big dealers. And then I worked my way in, and it's been great ever since. We're innovating, and we've got Gerald Swindle on the team now, and Milliken, obviously, and you. And I think, because we're anglers, we really listen to the feedback, or at least try our best. in all aspects of the company.
Yeah. So when you're teeing up the pro staff, you just I have a pretty good idea of how this works, but there's a lot of people that don't. How many will you take, like, how many people reaching out will you actually take under consideration versus how many people you actually look at, follow them a little, and, scout them and recruit them yourselves? Because you could probably save a lot of people a lot of time in sending their
Yeah.
demands.
Yeah. So like, dude, I get a ton of like resumes, like, you know, for lack of a better term, like half-assed resumes that I like scan through, and you can tell in the first, basically in the email, like it's pretty clear who's legit and who's not. And to be honest, most of the pro staff that we find success with that aren't just getting a small discount or something, we're going out and seeking, like, I always have like sort of a mental list, and I'll even like write it down sometimes, like, hey, this guy's legit. Like, I want to, follow him on Instagram or whatever, look into him, how is he presenting himself? Like, is he someone that you'd want, to go out to dinner with and like introduce him to a client, right? Or a friend or your wife, right? Like that's first and foremost, because you don't want to have someone that's just a bad person on your team. Like I think that goes for pretty much any company, right? And
Yeah.
whether they do a good job vetting that or not, like that's up to them. But I think that's at the base of every, companies. And I hate pro staff. I hate that word, but I guess that's the only term for it, right? Like team or, but in a nutshell,
We're
yeah.
gonna have to live with the word.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, like the legitimate pro staff guys, they may send an email, but most of the time, man, it's a face to face. Like, meet them face to face, whether it's at ICAST or whether it's at in the bag line, right? Sorry, my computer's moving. In the bag line at weigh-in or whatever it is. That's where in this industry especially, I feel like that's where you can grow, is like meeting people face to face, not sending some resume that I get 10 a day, right? Like,
I believe it.
it's so hard to differentiate yourself. Like when Gerald Swindle had that video, I think he was on Mercer. He was wearing this AFCO Powerhouse hoodie. Dude, flooded my email.
Like, for
yeah.
sponsors, not to buy
Yep.
the hood.
People are just like, I want to be on the team. I want to be on the team. I want to be on the team. And like, it's so clear, like who's going to be worth it and who's not. And 95% of the time, an email in is not going to do it. But with that being said, I actually emailed in the first time and I called them. But the way I went about it was I didn't even send a resume. I was just like, hey, do you have any time this week to jump on a call? I'd love to run something by you. I didn't even mention pro staff, didn't send a resume, didn't talk about, I have 5,000 followers on Instagram, right? Like, there's ways to go about it where an email, where that that first point of contact is successful. And I feel like, like I said, 95% of people don't do it the right way.
Yeah. So there's a good lesson there, because that's never talked about, but like, it goes back to such old school tactics, like being able to carry on a conversation with someone, being, not super socially awkward in public, being able to shake a hand, damn firm handshake.
Yeah, exactly.
Those are like gone by the wayside, but people don't understand. Like, you're 26, you're managing the pro staff. But usually the people that run the pro staff teams are kind of into their 30s, 40s, and 50s, and that still carries a lot of weight. It still means a lot, not just your, your numbers on Instagram, which can be bought and paid for, without any kind of research, or just your tournament results or anything like that. So that's cool to hear you say that. I didn't realize we'd be taking that direction. So good lesson there.
No, it is. It is. I think, face to face. I know we had the whole COVID thing, and social media is a hot topic, and YouTube and all that. But at the end of the day, like, that's all important, and it is. And this has been said over and over again. But really, it matters, like, what type of person you are, and because a lot of it is when someone walks up to you at the ramp and says, "Hey, like, what are you running for batteries?" If you're a weirdo, they're gonna be like, "Dude, that guy's a weird dude." Like, what, you know what I mean? Like, you want to have a conversation with them, right? I mean, I may be a weird dude, but at least I can talk to someone, and maybe they walk away and they're like, "God, that guy's jacked up, and he looks like he just friggin' drank 15 Red Bulls." But I had a good conversation, and they, at least, I was able to talk with them and engage with them, right?
If I met you at a boat ramp, like at dark coming off, like talk to you for 5 minutes, I'd be like, I want whatever batteries that guy's got in his boat, because he's going hard in the paint.
Oh God. Yeah, right. Exactly.
Well, we do have to nerd out on the batteries a little bit. There's so many questions, I've made videos on them. There's lots of accessible information, but a lot of people just, don't want to go through those channels to talk about it. We won't spend a ton of time on it, but we'll just talk about it, because there's a lot of lithium battery companies out there, as everyone knows. And this isn't just like a straight plug for Powerhouse or whatever. It was, I did a deep dive on the company before I, started looking into it, and we started talking. And there's a lot of battery companies that just slap a sticker on any old 12.8 volt lithium battery from China. That's just where lithium batteries come from. But there's very few that have like pushed the technology.
Right.
It's been stagnant at that 12.8 volts. And now, Powerhouse has had the 16 volt for, a few years, the 36 volt, the running guns and everything. So now with the 16 volt, everyone sees Milliken using it. We all use it. And the biggest question I get is, does it make your screen clearer? And which is really it's a subjective question, because it totally depends on your boat, and your wiring and your setup and everything like that. So I know the answer I give them all the time. I want to hear it right from the horse's mouth, and then I'll chime in if there's anything that I haven't been telling these folks.
Yeah, no, I mean, first and foremost, I am not. So our engineer and part owner, his name's Bob. The guy is a geek when it comes to the technology behind batteries. Like, if you walk into his garage, I'm not kidding, because I got my batteries rigged there, or the back of my boat rigged there. He has batteries that he's ripped apart, stacked to the ceiling. Like, it's crazy. So I'm not at that level. So I may, not be as detail oriented as him when talking about all this. But as far as the 16 volt battery goes, so people make unbelievable, like the harnesses, right? Like they make, I'm not sponsored by any of those guys, but you can make your own at home with 8 gauge, 10 gauge, whatever it is, right? And that creates correct me if I'm wrong, Jamie, but it's like a smoother and like less resistance for the power to go to your graphs, in a nutshell, right?
Yeah, it cuts out the voltage drop associated with long runs.
But you're always going to have voltage drop, because, like when graph companies make commercials, right? Those graphs are connected straight to the battery. It's not like they're running all the way down a 20-foot boat into the back compartment to your battery, right? Those graphs are connected directly to the battery, right? Like when you pull them out, they connect that to the battery. So there's almost no voltage drop. So they're getting whatever, 12, 8, 13 volts even in some cases with lithiums. So, we came out with the 16 volt because not because 16 volts necessarily makes your screen clearer. It can in some cases. I'm not going to say that, if you have 13 volts going to your, your Hummingbird or your Garmin or your Lowrance, that it's going to be any less clear than 16. But that voltage drop is a factor. So throughout the day, when you're, using a dedicated lithium for your graphs, it's draining your battery all throughout the day. So when you run in, I've had situations in the past when I've been using a prior company I worked with where I would see 11.7, 11.8, 11.9, whatever, 11.6. Those, you will not have clear screens. You will not have clear screens with below 12 volts. And even like it can affect your fishing substantially. Like if you have 25 minutes left in the day or an hour left in the day or even 2 hours left in the day and you're live scoping or you're using your 360 or whatever it is, you want your screens to perform. Like people underestimate how important it is to have your screens crisp, clear, and all dialed in, right? You want to be looking at the same screen at 6:45 in the morning as you are at 2:40 in the afternoon before check-in. And with our 16 volt, whether you're seeing 16.8 or 15.9 or 15.8, you're not losing any clarity in the graphs. It's performing top of the line all day, literally all day, no matter what gauge wire you have, because you're still going to get, even if there's some voltage drop, it doesn't matter. So that's what I sort of talk to people about. And I may have missed something in there, but that's in a nutshell why that 16 volt outperforms any 12 volt battery when it comes to graphs.
Yeah. So, I mean, there's nothing out there that is going to make your screen clearer than it can possibly be from the factory. The 16 volt mitigates the voltage drop, associated with harnesses, fuses, long wire runs, everything like that. And it must be I think it's like a US Army quote, but it's the best or be the best you can be, or whatever that slogan is. It's as good as it can be. And you're not guaranteed that result with, if you have a 12 volt battery or, whatever, regular 12.8 volt battery, 1 foot from your graph plugged directly into the factory power harness, and you're not using it for an extended period of time, then that's also as good as your graph's going to be. But that situation is not, it just isn't, it doesn't happen.
Right.
Unless you're like
you
ice fishing.
You don't put a battery in the bow of your boat, right? And
yeah.
And so that shouldn't, but that's a good example because it helps people. I mean, people get in forums all the time and they're always talking about, oh, it doesn't give you clear screens. I have 13 volts and it looks just good. Yeah, dude, that's not what we're talking about. It's not we're not directly comparing. If you plug a 13 in at 100%, 13 volts when your battery's at 100%, it's the same, right? I mean, Bob, and there are arguments there, so I'm not going to go into that because there have been, I think this is relatively new that we don't know for sure, but what we do know for sure, right, is that 16 volt combats the voltage drop that you get with wires, fuses, like you said. 100%.
Yeah. And, on top of that, I did the math a while. We might have to drum it up again. But I had multiple phone calls with people asking about the 16 volt, and they weren't sure whether to go with a Powerhouse 16 volt or a Powerhouse 12 volt. And when I started looking at the numbers, we should do the math right now, because I think cost wise, it's right around the same. Like there really is no reason not to. So if we look at a 12 volt 100 amp battery, that's 1280 watt hours. We got to write this down. We can chop this up a little bit if it gets a little long. We got to figure this out once and for all. 1280 watt hours. 800 bucks. 16 volt 16 volt deep cycle. So let's look at this. If you only need 100 amps at 12.8 volts, that'll give you 1,280 watt hours for $800. Just the 60 amp, 16 volt is 960 watt hours. Because a lot of people don't consider, they just look at it, an amp as an amp hour. But when you're running at 16 volts, you're using 75% of the power you would. So that's 960, the 16 volt, 599. So that's 960 divided by $600.
I love this.
$1.60 an amp hour for the 12 volt. 1280 divided by 800. $1.60. It's the exact same price. I ran the.
I didn't either, dude. You're enlightening me right now.
It's the exact same price. It's $1.60 per amp hour, whether you're running a 60 amp, 16 volt, or a 100 amp, 12 volt. Right. So they're not only that, the 60 amp is way smaller.
Yep, and lighter.
It's only a 24 volt series. It's lighter. So what I do in my boat, just because I have, I've got the 36 volt batteries, and in the Lunds, the batteries go in the front. So I went from 312 volts to 236 volts, which is still a lot. Totally freed up a tray. So now I can just run my graphs directly to that 16 volt in the front. So that's a no-brainer there. There's a lot of nickel squeezers that listen to this and look for value in things.
Hey, look.
And this isn't just a plug. These are the numbers that we're just, figuring out now. There's no reason to run a 12 volt over a 16 volt for a dedicated live scope battery or any graph.
Yeah, 100%. And what's great is, Lowrance has some restrictions. I think it's over 17 volts. If it comes over 17 volts, it cuts the unit off. Like, it doesn't damage it, I don't think, but we have a regulator. So it only provides the Lowrance with 16.8, I believe. So if you're going to run a Lowrance unit, it's not a problem. One other thing that doesn't get mentioned a lot, because we're so focused on, like, everyone who fishes, tournament fishes, guides, whatever, they focus on fishing, the fishing industry, right? But you don't think about, like, other lithium battery companies, that may only be 25% of their market for what their batteries are for, right? That you have golf,
RV, solar,
cars, hunting, solar, right? Right now, we may jump into the hunting side a little bit, just because I think Gerald has some really good ideas on that front. But since the inception, like, we're all fishermen, so we've only cared about bass fishing. What can we do to make the best system for a bass boat? Period. That's it. So, the redundancy with the system, I know we haven't really talked about that, but how if something for some reason went wrong with your 16 volt battery, all you do is flip that three-way Pergo switch, and now all your graphs are running off your 12 volt, whether it's a lithium or AGM. So you have that redundancy, and then the 236s in parallel, you have redundancy there. There's redundancy in the charging, where you have the plug-in chargers, the non-waterproofs. You have the run and gun system. So when you're running down the lake,
there's a backup plan for every possibility. There's a backup plan. That's why it's a clear pick for the opens. I used to drive around with 3 extra 12 volt batteries. Now you don't need to. Like, you're going to make a tournament day no matter what happens.
Yeah. And on that note, the other thing about all three of us being tournament anglers, whether the elites or local, doesn't matter. It's all the same. Like, when it's Derby day, it's Derby day, and that matters a lot to us and to our customers. So, the customer service has to be there, right? When we get a phone call, it's us three answering the phone. Like, hey man, yeah, you're at a tournament in Florida and one of your 36s for some reason had an issue. Done. They screenshot their app, they send it to us over text, personal text number. We get it, we ship them a new one right then and there, no questions asked, overnight. So you'll still be able to run, your boat because of the redundancy, but a battery's on its way for when you get back to the lodge or the camper or whatever for, that night. So like, we care about every person's experience on the water, because even if you're a pro angler, you don't get unlimited days on the water. So we want every day to be as good as it can be for everyone. And we don't want a battery issue to be, the cause of, going back to the service trailer or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah. I hear you. It's, someone who's RVing or whatever, or prepping for an RV trip, if they call in the regular
Right.
A company outside of fishing would maybe not have the urgency that you guys will.
Correct.
So,
especially if it's only 25% of their market. They care about what's making them the most money. Not right. So
so you're starting the elite career here. Everyone knows you're the powerhouse guy, and then you do something with Douglas too, right?
Yeah, Douglas, they're super cool. They're great people. I've been with them for 7 years and I'm 26. So that's kind of cool. Doesn't seem like that long of a time, but in our industry and at my age, it is. I played 4 years of soccer in college, and during my senior year, and I didn't fish, which was a bummer, but I got a scholarship to play soccer. Right. So, I started a tournament trail, and one of the sales guys at Douglas was fishing it. And he was like, oh, this is interesting. Any opportunity at Douglas maybe sponsoring it, because they're from New York as well, Douglas. And so that just sort of sparked that relationship. And then I ran those tournaments for them because they bought it. And then I was a sales guy for them for a year. And then I was like, hey, I'm going to, try to make a run at this thing. And they were supportive all the way through and through. Their rod designer is incredible. His name's Fred Kantawi. Matt Pangrak was actually the first guy to test our conventional rods with Fred. I want to say he was telling me this. It might've been Table Rock. But anyway, long story short, these rods are so incredible because not only do we have, rods for, just your usual like 7.6, 7.4, Senko, whatever, but like super specific rods for like big glide baits, big swim baits for stripers. It's just a crazy big lineup. And, we're growing. It's not like we're, taking over the world right now, but I think it's going to happen soon. And I'm just, grateful that they took a chance, honestly.
Yeah. Cool. So the reason I asked you that, so you've got these two brands that you kind of do the recruiting for and everything. How are you going to balance in the elites, someone without a battery sponsorship, someone without a rod sponsorship? Like, I would think you're going to get hit up a lot. How, like, do those lines cross lots, or do you have like a thing that you say, or like, how do you balance that? Because I think about that a lot. Just walking around loaded with jigs last year, just being associated to it, like it was constant. So I couldn't imagine something like batteries like that every boat needs, and rods that every angler needs.
Yeah, it's hard for me because I'm not someone that says no easily. Like, I want people to be happy. I like try to get along with everyone. And so that being said, it's hard when someone's like, hey man, like battery deal didn't work out for me last year with, I would really, they do it the right way. They're a good guy, but maybe we don't have room in the budget. Like that's so challenging for me to say no, but I've had to do it a little bit here and there.
Mm-hmm.
At first I was kind of trigger happy. I was like, oh, like, yeah, I would love to hook you up, man. And then I realized like, this is going to drive the company bankrupt. If I continue to just, whatever, like give batteries away to just because, I'm buds with this guy. Right. So that's been a challenge for me.
Well, you get to see it on both sides. You've been the angler looking for, a equipment deal, and you're also on the other side, and you see on the back end how much you have to sell to make up for, $8,000 in batteries, or whatever. That's way too high. 5,000 in batteries.
Right.
Like you got to do some selling. You got to look at that person like, is this going to be worth it? Like, are they going to be able to sell 100 grand in batteries and then on top to make, the relationship even worth it? Like, you got it like an analytical mindset on every person you talk to for that.
What's funny is a lot of the best guys that I've found, it wasn't as analytical as you'd think. It was, I feel like I can read people pretty well, and like I kind of get a vibe pretty fast. So I would say less so analytical and more so of course I do some analytical stuff, right? Like after the fact, but like I said, man, like face to face and like how they carry themselves and how they act in front of people is a big indicator of, are they going to be a guy that's worth, taking a risk on, and will they be able to sell a battery if they walk into their, a local dealer or make a call or something. Like that's a huge deal. So I think that is almost as important as, being analytical as far as like on the back end, like looking at their Instagram numbers or whatever that is that you're going to do.
Right. And I think it's important for like anglers to hear that too. Like if they know someone's in a position like yours, or, because there's plenty of folks in those positions, to not just lean on that person and lean on that, you kind of have to, like, you got to strike a balance at some point.
Yeah.
Just for
sure. But like, look, but at the same time, like if you really think that you can provide value, there's no problem in reaching out. Like, I don't want to hinder someone from sending an email if they're like, look, I think I can do something here. Right. Like that, but our industry, we're done with giving out free stuff because you fish your local BFLs. Like that's over. I just hope, I'm going to tell everyone in the audience, like that is long gone, so far gone that it is, it is like out of the park, like gone. So yeah, I just wanted to like make that clear, and that's clear for me when I even back in the day, because I was that same guy. Like I've been obsessed with bass fishing since I was 12. When I was 16 to 18, 19, 20, I would reach out the same way. But then I slowly learned like that's not the right way to do it, what I was doing, right? Or, you can only get denied so many times before you're like, there's got to be a different approach to this.
No, this ain't the recipe.
Right. Yeah, exactly. So, yeah.
Huh. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, as much as I wanted to talk about fishing with you, we had to do the battery talk. Folks have been asking, and the pro staff talk. You knocked off. We got two birds stoned at once, bud.
Yeah, love it. Love it.
Love it. I'm going to be calling you in a few days to get the Okeechobee report, and we've got this will air probably on like Tuesday. Brandon McMillan is we're going to air on Sunday. Going to do an opens preview for every Bassmaster Open's going to pick a local hammer, just give the opens a little more insight. And then we've got like some good sponsor prizes to give away for a fantasy fishing. So you pick the winner, or you pick whoever one person you think is going to finish the highest, and then you pick the check weight as the tiebreaker, because there's going to be a lot of ties. So closest check weight to the ounce wins the pack. So as we travel around, I'm probably going to have to get you on to do a lake preview, because you've been around enough, so you're going to know a few of these places, but you're not coming on for Florida.
I'm actually super thankful, Brandon McMillan. He let me keep my boat at his place when I drove to West Palm Beach to fly out to Boston. It's sitting there right now. So he's a good dude. He's a hammer there, dude.
Yeah, he's the
favorite.
The whole McMillan family are the legacy legends. So it's going to be interesting to see what he has to say. I couldn't imagine like a lake that fishes that small having that many people come to your hometown. Just like,
oh, I know, dude.
Take away the hometown advantage real quick.
And the Toyota Series right now is just beating the crap out of those fish. You just know.
Yeah, they're catching them too.
Are they? That's actually, you reminded me. I gotta check that out. What's leading?
I don't know. I looked, like there were only like 80 guys weighed in, and there were a bunch of like 24s, and I think there was 125, and it was pretty stout throughout. So I kept looking. I was like, "Where's all the opens guys and the elites?" So I was like, "Oh, right, cut off."
Yeah. Exactly. Oh, that's cool though, that you're doing the open stuff, because I mean, viewership is up 70%. I wonder if it can grow anymore. Although you always wonder that, and then it somehow Bassmaster pulls it off. But it's legit. Like, I
think it'll keep growing. Like with live on day 3 on all of them now. Like that's great.
Yeah.
Like people love watching it. When you watch, everyone's seen everyone. Other than the 9 new ones every year, like on all the other series, and a lot of these guys no one's seen, and it's cool to watch how it shapes out as the season goes. Like that was one of my favorite parts of last year, was just like watching the points and watching the up and comers. Even if I was on the outside looking in, it's still just fun.
It is fun. It's cool.
So yeah, man. Okay, bud, I've had you for an hour. I'll let you get back to your apartment and your crazy ass travel schedule. Thanks for jumping on.
Yeah, man. Appreciate you having me. I'm glad we could talk shop.
Yeah, I'd say follow Kyle on Instagram, but it's blowing up like crazy. You probably already are. I've been sent about 10 of your ice fishing reels, Mr. Ice Fisherman guy. People send it to me constantly, like, have you seen this?
I got a new one coming out you guys are gonna like. I already know.
I'm not even gonna have to look. It's gonna end up in my inbox. All right, man. Keep killing it. Thanks a lot, bud.
Appreciate it. Later.
All right. Thanks everyone for tuning in. Don't forget to subscribe, drop a comment. If you're on Spotify, leave a review. Apple, leave a review. All that stuff counts. And we'll see you on the next one.